In my lab, I showed up, played hooky because airplanes dropped pamphlets and said, come to California, there's lots of jobs. That's why I went to California. I hitchhiked. But before that, every 15 million people were sleeping in every empty lot because the banks failed. They failed and people bought homes and cars, but they couldn't pay them off. So the banks said, you're 3 weeks and you're out if you don't pay. So they were kicked out and they built shacks all over America. 15 million people in my area alone were kicked out of their houses. And there were bread lines and soup kitchens and all that. And I looked around, the stores had everything in the windows. Vacuum cleaners, radios, it's just that the public didn't have purchasing power. They had it, but the banks failed, so they couldn't get it. And then I hitchhiked to Washington, because the people were sleeping all over it. But in Washington, there was a larger group of people. They were war veterans of World War I. Thousands of them came with crutches, wheelchairs, and were sleeping all around the Capitol, every empty lot. And they said, we want our pension. The government promised them $600 when they got out of the Army so they can start life anew. But the government didn't have any money, so the government gave an IOU. He said, I can't pay my rent or buy food with it. So they were all over the Capitol, and it looked very bad. So they got the Army to get them out of there. So the Army called and said, you guys have to leave. They said, no, we're not leaving until we get our $600 that the government promised us. So that was Douglas MacArthur. He was a captain. He threw tear gas at them and got them out of there. I just want you to know this. It's not in your history books. It should be, because there were thousands of soldiers involved. Do you understand? They don't care about people. Obviously, the government doesn't really care. Otherwise, they wouldn't outsource. Industry, American industry, would not outsource to China because it's just cheap labor. They would keep Americans working. But if they kept Americans working, we would lose the competitive edge. You understand? We wouldn't be able to exist. Either way. So, I'm trying to tell you they don't care about people. That's why they outsource. So, if they don't care about people, what are you fighting for? Okay. Now, we don't go to another country to bring democracy. It's because they have oil or they have something we need. Do you understand that? We don't go to bring democracy because we never had a democracy. I want to tell you what a democracy would be like. If you disagree, let me know. Our president would get up and criticize any country for an hour and a half or as long as he wants to. When he's finished, I says, is there anything else you want to add to that? He says, no, that's my criticism of China. Then I invite the Prime Minister of China to come on the air for an hour and a half and give his point of view. Then I invite the Prime Minister of Sweden. He says, they're both full of shit. This is how I see it. That's a democracy. But when you got religion on Saturday and Sunday only, no, not different religions, Christian religion mostly, you have to have a comparative religion, what all people believe and what some people don't believe. Agnostics, atheists, everybody. That's a democracy. Do you understand that? You've never had a democracy. If mothers don't know how to feed their kids nutritional food, if you're brought up in a house that was painted with Dutch boy white lead, that damages the brain. So when you bring your kid to school, he's not equal to other kids. In our school books it says all people are born equal. They're not. Some are tall, some are thin, some are wide, some have better eyesight, some have better hearing. They're not born equal. They're different. I'm not advocating this. I'm telling you like it is. So what we would do in the future is examine children in many different areas. If you live in a house where mother and dad fight all the time, finally to get a divorce, you might go, boy, I'm never getting married. From your background, that appears to be correct. Do you understand what I mean? So if a kid comes from such an insecure background, and if his mother, say, yaks at him all the time, you leave all your things around, your brother puts things back. What's the matter with you? Can't you clean up? I'm picking up after you all the time. That kid stops listening to verbal behavior. Then you bring the kid to school at 6, the teacher starts talking, he looks out the window. He's not interested in verbal behavior because it was unpleasant. tyranny of words will help you do some of that. So, you kids don't go to school as equal. They're not fed right. Like if a kid from an impoverished family says, "Hey, Daddy, we'll keep the moon up there." He says, "What do I know about that?" He says, "I don't see no rope holding the moon up there." The dad can't further that. You might say, "Let's look it up in the encyclopedia." So you give your kid a head start. So when you bring kids to school, they come from different environments where love isn't a manifest thing. Not all children are loved and treated well by their parents. Now I want to get on that bullshit word again, love. Another bullshit word, which everybody is looking for. Nobody ever really finds it. Now I want to tell you something about love. How many of you like everything you've ever done in your life? Okay. So if you live with a replica of yourself, how long will you be together? Think about that. Okay? And anybody don't understand what I'm getting at? No,
actually, yeah, you did confuse me on that. You said if you live with a replica of yourself, how long will you?
If you live with a replica of yourself, how long will you be together?
Because you don't like everything that you yourself do in life.
I would have dumped myself
Yeah.
a while ago.
So what I'm saying
we're all a
then,
little
sometimes you like yourself, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. So then you fall in love and get married. And sometimes you like George a lot, sometimes a little less, sometimes you hate his guts. On Wednesday he's okay again. So love is a fluctuating thing. Can you understand that? Nobody is constantly in love with themselves or anyone else. It fluctuates. Sometimes you love a person a little more, a little less. Does that make sense? Anybody got a problem with that? Nobody loves everybody or themselves all the time, unless they're mentally ill. So, if you do away with those things and educate people, like a girl sometimes comes crying to me, she says, "My boyfriend left me." And I say to her, "Did you ever say no to a guy that you don't want to go out with him?" She said, "Well, I guess so." "How many times?" "Oh, I can't remember." So when you reject somebody, you can't think about their feelings, but you just have to understand how they relate to you, and if they don't, you reject them. So it's normal to be rejected or reject people. So if you reject people, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the person you reject. They don't meet your standards. They're different than you are. This guy's a socialist, and you're a free enterpriser, you don't like him because he's a socialist. Or whatever it is. But people feel bad when they're rejected. Goddamn females, reject me. They get mad. There's something missing in our education, understanding human behavior. Now, the psychologists in the future would be arrested as criminals because they try to adjust you to the system. How many of you are majoring in psychology here?
I have a bachelor's in psychology. Child development.
Anyone that would try to adjust you to this system's got to be a pinhead. See? So psychology or psychiatrists don't study human behavior. They really don't. They go to school, they get their PhD, they come out and they practice psychology. Psychology, for example, they'll say that some people are cold, they just have little feelings or care for other people, they're mentally ill. No, they're not. A lot of them are perfectly well adjusted where they're coming from. So I said years ago, Jacque, how can you design a society that works with so many different values, different cultures, different interpretations of love? How can you bring the world together? So I said to myself, that's what thinking is, talking to yourself, nothing mysterious. If I say, I'll see you Saturday at 4 o'clock, he says, just a minute. Saturday I take the kids to Aunt Minnie's, I can't make it. That's what thinking is, talking to yourself, nothing mysterious. So I said to myself, how the hell are you going to change all these people? Why don't you test it, see if it works? So I joined the Ku Klux Klan in Miami. Okay, I attended a lot of their meetings. And then after attending a lot of the meetings, I dissolved it in a month and a half, that group, that particular group, to see if it could be done. Then the next thing I did is I joined the White Citizens Council. They hate foreigners, any foreigners. And I dissolved it in 1 month alone. I'll tell you how a little later, okay?